All right. And there we are. Yeah, better late than never, I would say. Modern world of technology. Welcome back to another, very freshly squeezed, summerly episode of PKs on Air. I mean, it's warm, yet I think we're supposed to get thunderstorms, so we shall see how it
Yep.
goes. There's and it's 26 outside, so it's relatively warm here. But let's see how long that lasts. How's the weather in Berlin?
I think exactly the same.
Kind of the
So
same.
we have 28 degrees at the moment, but it's getting darker and darker. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, we're supposed to have thunderstorms already earlier today, but that didn't kind of materialize. So I don't know.
Same here, yes.
What that was. But anyhow, so here we are. It is, what is it? I think we are down to like 46, 47 episodes. And I think in the course of that, we've already covered a bunch of things that happened. I think during the last almost 1.5 years now, huh? Time is flying, huh? Pretty much.
Yes, almost 1.5 years.
But I think the one thing that is really new is that Google is rolling out updates, so many at a time that we can't even keep up with them in during the episodes, and actually have to kind of bundle them into one episode. That's I think that's certainly not have happened before. So that's interesting. But before we go there, I poured coffee over my shirt and it's hurting. So it's like, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of inclined to blame you because I kind of tried this, what is that, like the wheat milk nonsense, and that just didn't really work out. So I blame it on that.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, I have to say.
So it was because of the milk, right?
It was because of the milk. Of course, it was because of the milk. Well, how else? I mean, maybe it was just me to be too stupid to drink it properly, but that's a different story. I'm getting there. As you know, it's all about optimizing. It's also about optimizing myself in a way. So I think let's get rid of some cow milk. Why not? See how that goes. But
good idea.
Getting there. I have to say it's slightly different taste though. So
yeah, it takes maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, 1 or 2 weeks. Well, let's see if I make it to 1. But yeah, to be fair, I also kind of switched for some other stuff like shakes and whatnot to almond milk ages ago. And I think if you can manage that, then that's fine. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but we shall see. But enough about milk. Let's talk about SMX quickly before we kind of jump into, because it happened as well. Before we jump into the summer of Google updates that are currently kind of rolling out. Actually, one update is rolling out as we speak. I found that quite interesting. So there's apparently the one thing that Google surprised us with, I would say 3 days ago, was another kind of unannounced spam update. That was quite interesting. So we can talk about that. And as a matter of fact, the second one is currently rolling out. So we shall see. But let's talk about SMX. I mean, you were there as well. I mean, you were in the Berlin hub as well, obviously. And I have to say, it kind of felt at least a bit like we're getting back to some kind of real event. What was your take? I mean, that's at least how I felt. Because it's like not sitting at home, at least. I think that was the major difference.
Definitely, yeah. So I was super excited, I must say. So when I drove to the office, I was like, oh my God, it's like I will meet some people. So around 10 or something like this. I was like, oh wow. And I will see some colleagues and other people, and we'll be able to see at least 3 people live on stage. So because we were hosting like the hub, and it was, I mean, of course, it's not, you cannot compare it with like a real conference, but I found it, I like the idea of having that kind of different hubs in different cities. That was, I think, well organized, and I found it super exciting to meet people at least, and have a bit like the feeling of a conference. So I was sitting in our main hall in the office the whole day or 2 days. And of course, I've seen some sessions live and the others via a monitor. So as if I would be at home, but it felt still different because I was sitting with some other people watching it on a monitor, right? So I really, really enjoyed it, I must say. But I didn't had a session. But how about you? Because you were, or I think you had maybe something like conference feeling, a bit even more than I had because you were presenting something. How was it for you?
I would say kind of the same. I kind of had the same impression that it was just like I think just the kind of the way how you present, if we kind of start with that perspective, I would say, is certainly different from like when you're just sitting in front of a screen. I mean, we had our like the big stage that you could like stand behind the screen, and we had this like really nice setup that the kind of our kind of IT guys put together, right, with like the the standing monitor and all the big stuff. So like you could actually, I would say the presentation part in a way felt quite natural. I mean, the only limitation that you have somewhat with those setups is that you can't move on stage. So that was probably a bit of the kind of, I wouldn't say the downside, but it's certainly quite exhausting. Like I had this, and I mean I had this like my solo session was like 1 hour, so essentially 50 minutes presentation and then a bit of Q&A, right? So like standing still for that long time is in itself quite exhausting. I had to say, so I really kind of noticed it in my hips and in my knees at some point.
Can imagine.
I mean, the other thing that obviously is kind of not the same still is that you don't have like really the audience interaction. But I mean, at least we kind of managed with the setup that the people, as you said, I could watch from the main hall to an extent. And I could I could also see some people, even though I think when you present like that, it's different because you really focus on like the front camera kind of thing, right? For the streaming. So different to normally where you would kind of like let you like kind of watch the audience, right? And like look left and right and stuff like that. That's the one, or that's the two things that you can't really do because then it kind of ruins it for the stream. So, and this is also what I think is like the major challenge with the hybrid events itself. As much as I love to kind of like, have something in person, but if you're not having like the crazy massive tech setup, like, TV type of setup, like really, really big scale, you always have to kind of decide for one or the other. So are you doing it for like the audience or are you doing it for the stream? Because otherwise you need like, X camera type of setup to kind of cover like the movements and all of that. If you want to do it really well, right? But I totally agree. I mean, it was also given the current like restrictions and situations. I mean, there were, I think, I can't recall, like 9 or 10 hubs, something like this. I think it was 9 hubs. And I mean, unfortunately, due to the situation, it was only like a handful of them actually had like real participants or actually people in the office at all, right? I mean, we had some like our friends over at Wright in Munich, and they were actually hosting the Rising Media Cruise. So there was some Bartosz team from Monley had some in Wroclaw, but like I think that was pretty much about it, right? So it was, I think, but from that perspective, it was the right decision to do it that way because otherwise you had to kind of cancel everything again. So I think that was actually a good move in a way, and maybe from the stream, it felt somewhat different. What I was really disappointed in was like some parts of the quality of like Hopin and StreamYard. That was really weird. Like that there were so many like lags and this auto scaling, downscaling, upscaling, and whatnot. That was really frustrating. I have to say, but sessions were, I mean, as expected with SMX. I have to say, were like the ones that I saw, that I think that we saw together also, like they were really strong, right? So I mean, there was, I think Tom Anthony did a fantastic presentation. Like Jono did a great one as well. So like there was a bunch of like really good stuff. I mean, Yulia did like a great talk on like PPC stuff. We had Philip in our hub like for the closing keynote, which was like a broader perspective on things. So I think there was like really some really, really in-depth and kind of good content there. So that I think this is also what like sets SMX Advanced apart from other formats and events, like both because of the long sessions, kind of only 2 single tracks, PPC, SEO, and then you go for it. So I think that was good. I have to say that I liked a lot. But I have to say I'm really looking forward to some proper events again. And by the looks of it, I mean, so Brighton, I mean, we had that on the stream a couple of weeks ago. It had to be postponed, but from what I understand is that our friends at Get on Top that who are running SEOcom and OMX, I think they're now rebranded to, like, was it Online Expert Days, if I'm not wrong, something like this.
Online marketing expert, online expert days.
Something like this. So they kind of, I think, trying to kind of put this all together. I mean, they are definitely gonna be running an in-person event, or 2 events actually, in Salzburg. And I mean, obviously pending all the things that are still happening until then, but I think they were very clear on the fact that it's either in person or not, which I think is an interesting stance, but I can totally see where they're coming from, because I think a lot of that conference, or those 2 conferences actually, is really also about like the atmosphere and those types of things. So yeah, I kind of can really see that is the reason for the decision. Definitely, I mean, there's definitely going to be a scale down, I suppose. I mean, I haven't like seen anything official in a way, but I think that the tickets were like fairly limited this year. And I think pre-COVID, we had like, I think close to 1,000 people at SEOcom, right? And I mean, I don't think that that's possible with the distance and regulations and whatnot. But even if it's half, right? Let's say it's 400, or let's say it's maybe even 500. I don't know, but probably 400 is more realistic than 5. But anyways, even that is a proper like event feeling, right? So like, I'm really hoping that this is gonna materialize. And there might be some interesting things happening.
Yeah.
So I heard it's gonna be in
end of November, right?
November, yeah, it's usually in November. I haven't seen the final dates, but it's definitely in November. We shall see. But I really hope that that's going to happen. So
that would be good. Yeah,
certainly would be good. But I think for now it's actually I realized that like a bit of like an event break. I think there were a couple of things going on, and now I think it's really a bit of a longer summer break, more than we usually used to have. I think because also some of the major events. I think one of the big ones I usually spoke was also in Leeds, like the Search Leeds, which I think it was in June or something like that. The years before.
Something around June.
So that's not happening anymore, from what I understand. So yeah, there seems a bit of a slowdown now on that side. And then I think, I guess SEO Day is happening in Cologne again, at least from what I've seen so far on the website. So we shall see. Yeah,
that one will be in October, right?
I believe it was usually in October. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
So getting boring for you, right? Doing the next weeks.
And we're also doing we're doing PK summer break, right? This is also something we haven't said yet, but we're gonna do like a summer break here as well. Like I think from mid of July, if I'm not totally wrong. So I might actually have some time to get some real work done. So that's that's actually not the worst thing in the world, I suppose. So let's see how that goes. Anyhow, we wanted to talk a bit about Google updates and all the craziness I think that is going on right now. Where to start, where to end, right? I think we all kind of have been like part of the discussion in various like ways on Google promoting page experience and this kind of core web vitals and like the page experience update in the grand scheme of things. And I think also in one of the like recap episodes, I can't recall actually which one it was, but we had this announcement of kind of the page experience update being postponed, right? So this I think was where it really all started in terms of like official communication kind of earlier the year, right? And the other thing I think that was what was really interesting, if you recall, I think we had the last core update early December, right? So December 2020, and then nothing. Really for a quite long time, nothing, at least official, right? I mean, of course, there's it goes without saying, and Google says that constantly as well, like we're changing things and blah 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 blah, right? But like more like this continuous type of improvement things where they wouldn't talk officially about, and I mean that's good and fair. But what certainly is a thing is that like before, like those kind of core updates happened with a higher frequency. So almost 7 months now, and that's quite a long time. Especially, I think, again, I mean, that's the same as it kind of was in the past, right? If you have been affected, you might wish for a bit of a faster, stronger recalculation in a way, or reaction that kind of happens a bit faster. So I think this is usually the biggest thing. But yeah, so that was interesting. And I think what was also quite new with this thing in a way is that Google actually announced it in a way and said, look, we're going to be not only rolling out one core update, we're actually going to be rolling out 2 core updates, like separately from each other. And that is also something new that we haven't seen in the past. And there was a bunch of kind of speculation. And I mean, there's also, like, I think Marcus and Izzy kind of talked about like the update situation on one of the Clubhouse / Facebook streams that I kind of dial in from time to time, because it's just like, it's good fun to kind of just watch those two and just listen to a bit of SEO. Oftentimes it funny fits with my cooking schedule, so that's actually quite all right. So it's running on the kitchen. But yeah, so anyways, like I think also one of the points that Marcus was like emphasizing, and I commented actually on that, and I totally agree. Like, what's quite rare for a core update, and that's the first one that we're talking about now, is that you would not see that many changes, like in terms of impact, right? And people were like speculating why that is. And so my theory at the time was that I said, look, I think what could be possible is that they essentially needed some type of change that needs to happen beforehand. So kind of building a baseline for something. And then the other update, like the following core update, will kind of, start on that basis.
Will be,
So, even though, and I kind of compared it, but I think it's not the entirely correct comparison, but like I compared it with like when they did the caffeine like infrastructure update and then started to add things on top of it. This is somewhat how it feels like, even though I think it's not probably like the one-on-one like comparable, but like this is what it kind of felt a bit like, that for whatever reason, either they couldn't finish it or it had to be kind of technically split into different rollouts for whatever means, right? But like that they needed to do something first in a way and set the foundation, and we only saw like some small things. And potentially this is what I'm also thinking is like, even for those that now have been impacted, positively or negatively, there's a high chance that it might be reverted or changed again with the second update. Yeah. So I think this is quite an interesting one in a way that we have not seen that in so far. Like this is kind of a new thing. So, and then for the second, this happened early June, right? I think it was 3rd of June.
The first week of June, yeah.
Yeah, was the rollout for the first kind of core update. And then so for the July one, which they've not kind of they only said it's going to be happening in July, but it didn't kind of say anything about like specific dates. I mean, as obviously that rarely happens, but also it's not really any details in a way that are known, right? Not like the let's carefully call them politically colored updates, like the page experience one, where it's very, very clear that part of the agenda is web performance, and they're talking about this like over and over again. And that for sure. I mean, again, it's the old debate of like how much impact does it really have, or is it going to have? I think also Philip mentioned in his keynote at SMX that he does not really see this to be a significant update. I think he even went as far as kind of breaking down like the updates that they have communicated about like heavily in the past, and then kind of tried to put some some impact next to it, and those were the ones that usually had like this kind of the smallest impact. So this is why I said like somewhat politically motivated, agenda-driven kind of updates, like the Core Web Vitals one or like the page experience update one in a grand scheme of things is probably one where, and I think I've been on record saying that as well, like where I don't think it's going to be as significant, as for some of the other things. But yeah, for the July core update part 2, however you want to call it, there's not many details. I mean, there's like except for that it's going to be happening in July.
It's going to be happening, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't know much. But this is like the one thing that I really want to kind of emphasize is that I honestly have the, like, for whatever reason, the feeling that I'm, slight winners, slight losers, or whatever. That might not be the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that quite interesting. We're going to share the links in the show note. I think Sistrix covered it as always very, very very well, and I think he kind of went, Johannes, like the CEO of Sistrix, went in kind of the same direction, saying, look, I'm like, for the page experience update, like we don't really have that high expectations, and because of the fact, and I think this is probably also worth mentioning, that Google considers like the changes from the update, like from that update specifically, not the core update, but like from the page experience update, to be like a kind of a tiebreaker. This is what they call it. So if things being other ranking factors, right? If they are equal or the same, which, I mean, if we really think about it, this is probably rarely happening anyways. But if things are the same, then it's a tiebreaker, and that means that then if you have two results being exactly the same, then the faster one wins, kind of very roughly speaking. So, but how often is that really going to happen, right? We don't know, but that's kind of how they. And I mean, they're constantly saying that, that it's only a tiebreaker and whatnot. So yeah, and that's also like another really, really nice thing that kind of Sistrix has. It's actually for free, so we're going to link that in the show notes as well. It's like where you can just plug in any type of URL, domain. I mean URL, but domain, and then it kind of matches it with the known updates on the visibility curve, and then you can see if you're impacted, or if at least the impact correlates with a known rollout date of an update. I think this is also very helpful oftentimes if you look at things on a time scale and you're like, what happened there? And then you can overlay it really easily with kind of known update rollouts. I think from an observation perspective, I would say there's not really that much new in comparison to kind of other updates. So it's not just one industry. It's not really industry specific. So it's all over. Like within certain industries, you would just see shift in a way that if you have 5 players or 3 players.
Just need to interrupt you for a second. Are you trying to share something at the moment?
No, I'm not sharing.
Okay. I was thinking that you were trying to share something because I couldn't see the screen.
But I can maybe put up the Sistrix string really quick. It's actually a good idea. No, I was just trying to kind of outline like basically what you could see in those charts, and maybe we have an example here. Let me quickly put this on the screen. Share screen.
Yeah, why not? Because I mean there are many questions around exactly that question. So will there be any kind of like major differences in different kind of verticals or industries, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
he was one that let me kind of try to write it. Here we go. Was it? Yeah. So you can see like the movements are, I mean, of course the domains are somewhat different, right? It's Bellvilla, ADAC Reisen, and Der, which I think is their tour. So like basically it's travel vertical, it's all mobile. What you can see is they all had like this growth. They kind of went the same way, slightly decreasing. They all kind of crashed down. Like, so the kind of the movement is really in parallel, right? So this is kind of what you can see a lot of times in a way, right? And I think also what so this is kind of the typical way how it looks like when someone is positively or negatively affected. Here's it's kind of the other way around, right? So kind of really significant jumps. If you kind of see here, they kind of came from like a visibility of 8 points, now crossing the 12s, probably 13. So that's quite interesting. And this is what I meant with the example earlier. Like here's it's again travel Ab in den Urlaub and Urlaubsguru, like 2 very well-known German travel sites, and you can just see that like in some industries you just have a shift from one player to the other. So it's just like kind of the curves are just flipping around basically. But again, we have seen this with previous updates as well. So this is nothing really new, right? The cool thing is that Sistrix also does is like you can see kind of which other domains actually gained visibility from those that kind of lost, right? So this is super helpful. Yeah. And so and then there was a kind of like an update to the post where I think it said at some point then like that the rollout had been completed. So it was like 4.5 days, which you can also see here on the data points, right? So like for Neues-Deutschland, you can see like 1, 2, 3. So it went like over the course of 3 days. Same here, right? So it started 8, like 1, 2, 3 data points going all the way up. It's probably still hard to see, but I can. Oops, now the chart is gone. But here you can see it, right? So my cursor is like it's here. There's the second data point, the third data point is on the top, right? So it's usually for those, like for the core updates, and then on the 10th it was done. But interestingly, as you can see here, if we kind of compare the other charts, this here started earlier, right? So like not everything is kind of been happening at the same, because this is like 7, right? And then the ones here, they were starting on like the 8, right? So it's really exactly. So it's really sometimes different. Here it's even earlier, right? So the data point here is earlier. This is on this later one. So you have like this constant movement. Here's it's even clearer, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 data points. So it's like really sometimes it just takes a while until Google is through. So that's interesting as always. They have like the winners and loser lists included to the post. So that's certainly worth kind of having a look. But yeah, it's I found it quite interesting that it's somewhat mechanics seem to be the same. However, the impact is just not as significant in a way. So I'm kind of really curious actually what's going to happen. What's going to happen with the next
during
one.
the next weeks.
Yes. But yeah, it's just right now it doesn't look as significant in comparison to kind of to previously known core updates. And I think again it kind of probably is the reason, because there's a second one following. And I think also it could be that some things with the new update now they might just test new criteria in a way. I wouldn't say new ranking factors, but just new criteria for, I don't know, like quality or relevancy or what else. But maybe they are like very careful on the impact. So the strength could be tweaked with a second update as well, potentially, right? So like they
start just like with slightly changes.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe they came up with something that they actually think is going to work like really, really well, or maybe even multiple things at once. So they throw it out. I mean, of course, as we all know, like there's always like the kind of testing stuff going on behind the scenes, and there probably already have been like a bunch of tests with like test groups and whatnot. And I suppose in kind of that regard, the results were satisfying. So now it's like decided to be rolled out. But maybe Google is they probably know that the impact might be quite severe if they just do it all at once. So potentially they just want to kind of really see that in a way, kind of how it works live. So it could also be that there's just like new stuff being kind of tweaked with the second with the second thing, right? So we shall see. I think another observation that I also found interesting, and we have seen that as well, and I think also the Sistrix guys mentioned in the blog post, is that so that like oftentimes what you would have seen is that domains kind of like they react to one update, core update positively, and then for the next update they would react negatively, or or the other way around. But like you would oftentimes find certain domains that are constantly kind of moving up, moving down, moving down, and they're like either kind of on the border to like being really good or really bad, or either way. And I think like another thing that might suggest that they actually really trying something new is that this time slightly different. So you would see a lot of like new domains. Also, if you go like through the full list that Sistrix published actually, and I agree, I kind of checked some of those as well. Like those are not like the usual suspects in a way, right? So because in the past we talked a lot about like kind of certain types of UGC or certain types of like medical and health and whatnot type of content domains. they went like this, and then they went like this, and all of a sudden with the next update they came back like this, right? So this is a pattern that you have been seeing quite frequently with at least some of the very well-known names. And that seems to be slightly different as well. Again, could be a hint that they're just fundamentally changing something, or getting something new into the game. So quite interesting. I found. So yeah, that's basically, I think, the kind of core observations. Even though the implications apparently right now seem to be reasonably small in a way. There's also
so far.
Yeah, so far for sure. There's also a big write-up. Probably can put that on the screen as well, really quick. Hold on one second. Did it? Share the screen. Yes, please. That's over at the SEMrush blog. Let me quickly zoom in a bit. Which is also the kind of covering the first kind of core update and what they've done. Sensor works kind of in a same fashion as Sistrix with their update kind of checking tool, and Sensor also has categories, and you can compare it and whatnot. And they also kind of compiled this this kind of winners and losers list. But some things that is slightly different is they also brought it down by category. So if you want to kind of try to kind of dig into that, that's probably also worthwhile. Sites by size, or what's kind of the biggest position drops that they have. Again, they kind of did a category breakdown where you can see I don't know, and that I found interesting, but I'm not really sure how accurate that is, to be very honest. The spikes in the categories. Yeah, either way. So this is quite interesting. And then again, the winners and losers list that we all love so much. Yeah, so I think this is kind of a similar write-up, not as in depth, but in in English in this case. So if you still looking for some coverage, then that's certainly worth it. Also, what's absolutely worth it, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the write-ups that Mr. Glenn Gabe puts together, and this is not directly tied into the core update, but in a way it is. So he put a massive post together. I'm not going to go through it, just kind of for the sake of completeness, having it here, because as always, it's very, very, very thorough. Yeah, we're going, but anyway, so it's covering a slightly different angle in a way, because it's there were some sites that saw significant impact, but not in a way as fundamental change, but they lost entirely for parts of it, their rich snippets, which obviously means that certainly that is significant less attention in the search results. Thus, that means obviously, as you can see here, so is the site losing rich snippets during May 2020 core update? And so this is obviously older, right? May 2020.
But
nevertheless, whoop, yeah, 20K down to 0. And I mean, that hurts. So yeah, I think this is also a very interesting read if you kind of have to deal with that situation. Go have a look, kind of see what he put together there. It's definitely worth having a read. And then, I mean, yeah, this is not done yet. I mean, next to the fact that we don't know, when the next core update is happening. At least to my surprise, but I think other people were equally surprised. I don't know why this is not loading. Let's see. Search engine land doesn't like to. There we go. Yeah, Google search releases a spam update on June 23rd. So what is that? A week ago? Not even. Wednesday last week. There we go. And yeah, I mean, kind of in a similar fashion, a second one will follow next week. We'll add to this tweet thread when that happens. And I was like, what? Spam update? And then there's a second spam update. So this felt really, really strange. Again, not happened ever before in kind of this way.
I haven't seen so far that there will be a second one as well. So
well, the second one actually is rolled out today. So like the second update, actually, this is what I read earlier. There is here we go, part 2. Barry, as always, being the fastest on the planet by far. So part 2 of the Google search spam update on June 28th is rolling out for both, and that's also interesting. Web and image results, and it's a global update, so that means it's not language specific. One thing that I found also interesting is he said we'll also conclude later today. So that is relatively fast if you just recall what we've been talking about on the core update stuff. That was almost like 5, 6, 7 days, depending on complexity, and we've seen these things in the past. So this is a relatively quick one in comparison. I think what's also interesting with this entire situation is just the fact that, I mean, ever since like Panda back in the day, and then also Penguin, I mean, we have not seen that many like targeted updates in a way that have been talked about. I mean, again, there's the one thing that kind of the stuff that they talk about, and there's the other stuff that they're not talking about. But like going publicly on record, like also with all the kind of link penalties and link network takedowns that happened in the past, if you recall a couple of years ago, that has not happened much. I'm not saying they haven't done it, but like not in a like public communications type of way, right? So I have to say I was slightly surprised when this thing popped up on my radar, and I was like, one thing that I found also worth mentioning is that in the initial release of kind of the update. Let me see if I can put it up real quick. There's a link to this section, which is kind of how we fought spam on Google in 2020. So this is like from last year, but it has been linked again in the current release, and it's so probably most of you have already kind of seen it. Why can I not zoom in? There we go. And I think there's one thing that really stands out here. Jesus, damn overlays and everything. They, I think, put like a heavy emphasis on saying, look, I mean, we don't necessarily want to really penalize. I mean, that might be like the kind of how it feels like at the end of the day. But like what we actually want is we want to develop intelligent systems that prevent this stuff from even kind of making it to the search results, right? So I think rather than just like going, okay, this needs to go and this needs to go and that needs to go, right? It's just like, which is like a very labor intense and not really also kind of scalable approach in a way. It's like we need to develop like software solutions, AI type of tools, not necessarily, but like intelligent, let's put it that way, kind of solutions to actually fight these things at the core, so that they actually learn kind of the patterns and behavior, so that we don't have to do it manually again and again, because just, when kind of some spammer comes up with something smart, then ideally the system already knows what to look for due to the kind of the training data and due to, what has been fed with in the first place, like if it's kind of assisted learning and whatnot. So I think this is quite interesting that they again linked this here as a very strong hint. So I suppose, but again, this is just like interpretation of like stuff that Google has been done over the years and like kind of the patterns that you come across, but like that this still is somewhat true also for the update that they kind of pushed out now. So most likely I would imagine that this is kind of some like additional functionality, let's put it that way, algorithms either way, I suppose, that are supposed to deal with kind of new types of spam, whatever spam that might be. It's not said that it was necessarily only tied to links, can also be tied to other stuff. I mean, if you have followed the news, and this was not an update specifically, but Google also made changes to, for example, the FAQ snippets, where people were like, there were like tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of FAQs, and like, just not really became it wasn't usable anymore at some point, right, for certain types of queries. So they heavily limited that. And I mean, the reason why I'm mentioning is I'm not saying like this is an update towards that. What I'm saying is like there's also spam happening at very different levels, right? So there can be rich results spam. It can be kind of any type of spam, really. And I suppose this is also why they kind of put an emphasis again on like the kind of, systems that somewhat are supposed to deal with this entire thing, and then kind of take care of it in a like preemptive, automated type of fashion. Because fundamentally, what Google obviously wants is to kind of prevent it to make that stuff, like even that it makes it to the search results in the first place, like not find it afterwards, but rather prevent it from showing up in the search results. So yeah, that I think is really interesting. That kind of this has been just squeezed in between. Let's do some spam updates just for the sake of it. That was somewhat unexpected.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think we shall see how that goes. But the one interesting part that Google said, like even in the 2020, like in the post that I just showed, like kind of they improved their detection capability by more than 50%, and like in a way of like before it actually makes it to the search results. So that's quite an improvement if you compare like relative numbers. So yeah, I mean, core updates, spam updates, a lot of changes to the search results. I mean, like rich snippets, FAQ snippets being limited. It's busy. It's really, really busy right now. By the looks of it. Also, what I'm kind of curious about is, I mean, one of the concepts I think which is still like we could probably spend like an hour longer on this topic, like is everything around like the like EAT. And there was a tweet, I think that he was a guest of one of our earlier shows, Kevin Indig, put out, I think it was probably last week, around kind of content quality, and that sparked quite a bit of discussion, because he was like very direct in saying, look, I mean, Google puts more and more emphasis on like professional content. So like this, I'm not sure how he phrased it exactly, can't recall, but like he essentially said like the kind of non-professional stuff is gonna die, and then like people were like, of course, sometimes misunderstanding it in a way. And that was really interesting, and how much discussion that still sparks, even though I think that the concept of like kind of scaling authority in a way, or building up authority and kind of maintaining that authority and kind of at the end make use of that authority really is something that's not new, right? I mean, I recall that like I've been kind of talking to companies and teams years and years ago about like if you do, let's say, certain types of brand campaigns, that's most likely gonna help your organic traffic as well, right? Just because that is one of the signals. It can be assisting signal to kind of signal authority and make that one side stand out against others. So it's not really new, and it's also not really new that Google kind of puts a heavy emphasis on it. So I'm somewhat a bit like sometimes a bit surprised, and I also recall that there's oftentimes discussions around like but this is just a piece of content. Why is that €1,000? And you're like, yeah, but I mean, there's research to it. There's there's production to it. There's much more than that to it. One thing that I found extremely interesting, and I'm kind of curious on your take on this, is one thing that Kevin mentioned was that like building out this like professional profile of a person, could be you as an expert for content, could be me, could be like a doctor that writes for like kind of a health publication in a way, but like basically I would say like named entities in a way, so like real people. Because there was also another change that they did was just recently, where Google introduced somewhat the good old publisher markup again, in a different way with pre-approval. But like I think there's a lot of hints that building out like those profiles and authorities as like a real person, a known person with a profile, is going to be even more important in the in the future. It's like, what's your thought on that? Is that something that you're seeing as well? Is that something that you guys already actively doing, or you think do people understand this already, or is that still kind of too early?
So I would definitely agree that this is going to be a more relevant topic, and I think it already is, actually, to be honest. So we're having conversations with our clients, something around 2 years, I would say, talking about exactly that topic. Because I mean, there was a time then the EAT factors came up, and then people were scared. Okay, I do need to work on my content, on my strategy, work on quality. It was like a super huge topic, and then it just completely went away. So it was, for me, it felt super silent about that one. And we were continuously talking about content, and content quality, but also the author thing here. And I must say, for a very long time, we hadn't. So we are doing that actually for some of our clients. So when we, for instance, build up any kind of content hub or something like this, and producing a lot of content, having or creating a profile for that kind of person, whoever is publishing the content. And for a long time, we haven't seen any kind of impact, direct impact, to be honest. But I'm pretty sure that this will gonna make a difference, because what we see is that there are so many. I mean, we still have the topic of guest article stuff and the link building tactics, where you produce tons, or where you have magazines or something like this, where tons of content from random people providing content, linking to another page, with very low quality content. And this is what you have in so many cases. And I think especially when you think about that topic, it's kind of obvious that it's not only about is the content unique, or is it long form content or short form content or whatever, or do you have a mixture of different kind of formats, or is it holistic content? So there are so many aspects. But of course, it's also a fact that there is probably a real person behind that kind of content, and he has a real proven expertise on his field, right? So I can definitely agree on that.
And I think this is kind of a bit of a follow up on what I've been just saying. So essentially, it was kind of called the demise of amateur content. I think this is kind of how you phrased it, and I think there's a great follow up post on that just from I think yesterday, where kind of Kevin somewhat goes a bit deeper and says look, he phrased it in a way, say query deserves trustworthiness. So there's an interesting conversation going on there, because again, there's of course this your money, your life kind of definition already out there, but he has a bit of a slightly different spin. So if you have a bit of time kind of to spend, this is a really interesting read on his thoughts around authority building and kind of getting this profile to become a trusted source for certain things. And that would then mean that you probably if you're trusted for a certain kind of area, then maybe if that concept evolves, then you would be a relevant fit for one industry but not for another one. So it's it's a really interesting kind of line of thought that's definitely, I think, not going nowhere, but rather it's going to spark some thoughts if you kind of go through it. So but there's a ton of things. There's really a ton of things that's happening right now. So I guess there's it's going to be an interesting summer. So not much of a summer vacation, supposedly, but we shall see. We shall see how it goes. All right. So I think we already. We're past the hour already. Time is running. But I think we covered at least the majority of it. I mean, there's always something. But quick housekeeping before we say our goodbyes for now, because we didn't do it in the beginning. We finalized actually the series. If you recall, for those that have been joining us for some early episodes, we had 3 different ones on content marketing for different stages in the funnel. So that's now available as a very in-depth, or actually 3 in-depth write-ups for the 3 different stages. If you want to check it out, just go here, pa.ag/notes. Also, we're going to have all the recaps from the most recent episodes there. So if you watching this later at any of your favorite streaming platforms, the links that we discussed today, they're going to be available there as well. So pa.ag/notes. And with that, I say we are done for today. Thanks for dialing in. Thanks for spending the hour with us. And we're going to be back next week, same place, same time. And I think now it's almost time for Dominique. What's time for? 56 minutes. Soccer. Yeah, exactly. Soccer. So Germany plays our friends from the UK. We shall see how it goes. I mean, obviously we're going to win, but we shall see.
Sure.
We shall see. That said, we're over now. See you all next week.
Thanks
Cheers.
for dialing in. Bye-bye.